Good afternoon. We have another interview now with Raspberry Plum, a label based in London and Nottingham. So it's the first truly British label, although its background and origins are European. Aleksandra is the brand director and in charge of all the design work and the creative soul, I would have thought. Tell us a bit about the origins of your label, when you started it and where you saw, an opportunity. How did it all come into being?
So Raspberry Plum started, this would be our 8th season, so it started 3.5 years ago. The idea for it started accidentally. My family acquired a manufacture facility in Serbia, and I used to be a freelancer for many big corporate companies at the time, and I just thought I don't really have an excuse anymore not to do something by myself because I had this manufacture facility to use. So I just thought I want a way to work with Serbia because I come from Serbia. I moved to England as a child, so I wanted to connect my creativity with Serbia and try to promote Serbian manufacture.
Okay.
So this is how the label started.
And that is the origin of the name as well. You just told me which.
Name.
Yes.
So Raspberry Plum, Serbia is one of the largest exporters of raspberries and plums in the world.
It's really interesting, yes.
And it exported me, so it was logical to call the brand Raspberry Plum.
Wonderful. Can you just give us some more information about how you established the brand? What is the kind of the range, or the level you are interested in? What is the style like? We don't have any examples here, so just give us some information.
Initially, I really wanted to focus on producing organic and sustainable clothes that were a little bit different, a little bit more creative than just the basics that you find. I did that for about 3 seasons, and I really struggled with it to find the right fabrics that I could express my creative ideas with.
Creative fabrics that you could express your creative ideas with, but which are sustainable as well?
Which are sustainable and which are organic.
Yeah.
So after about 3 seasons, I realized that it wasn't really possible at this moment in time to make a successful brand of it. So I rebranded after 3 seasons and decided to actually just go for the creative side of things. And maybe as the brand grows and things develop a little bit in the industry with organic and sustainable fabrics, maybe to go back to it in the future. So at the moment, since then it's been a very conceptual brand, very creative, art-based, I would say.
Your stand here at Pitti Bimbo is in the Lycée, is that right?
In the apartment.
In the apartment, exactly.
Yes, in the
which is anyway the kind of the area where you have the very creative labels which focus a lot on interesting cuts, good fabrics, interesting color.
Yes, it's a more premium area, I would say.
Yes. Good. So your design work takes place where?
So all the design work takes place in my studio in London, in Westbourne Park, in Notting Hill area, if you're familiar with London. It's very close to where I live, so I'm lucky enough to walk to work. And then after that, the sampling takes place in Serbia. So I tend to spend about 3 weeks of the season to produce the samples in Serbia. I like to be there, so I get exactly what I want. So I think it's important to be there. Often I think people just send off their drawings to the factory and they make the samples, but because my samples are quite complex and there's a lot of embroidery, I find that I need to be there.
Yes. You already, or your label appears to be quite well established, although it is still very young in a way compared to other labels which are congregated here. So you seem to be able to or you have established quite a good contact to the media, to the specialist media as well. I hear you're sending around nice drawings, and you seem to be quite proactive in this respect as well.
Well, I'm very ambitious, I guess, by nature. So when I started, I didn't really have any contacts in the industry. I knew nothing about children's wear. I hadn't done children's wear before, apart from university when we learned to pattern cut for children's wear. But I guess you just, as long as you're nice to people and you respect everybody, you tend to make good contacts. And this is a good industry to be in if you want friendly people around you.
Which trade fairs do you exhibit at as well?
So the first trade fair of the season is always Pitti Bimbo, and then it's Playtime Paris and Playtime New York.
Okay, so you go to New York as well?
I do, yes.
And is that reflected in your sales? Do you already have a good, obviously you seem to have a good English presence, so to speak, but how is it on the continent, and how is it in the States?
The American customer tends to be a little bit more experimental.
Okay.
And they like anything that is a little bit different and quirky, which I think the European customer is a little bit more difficult in that way, especially Northern European customers. They like to be a little bit more modest, they like plainer colours, plainer clothes, and they don't tend to spend a lot of money on their children's wear, because they're practical, the kids are going to grow out of it. Americans, I think, are not like that. I think they like to dress their kids and to experiment and to look different and to stand out. So it's a good market for my brand.
And at Playtime New York, did you choose Playtime New York quite deliberately, because there are some other children's fashion fairs?
Yes, Playtime New York is more of a European-based brands, and that's where smaller boutiques come to. And the other shows that are a little bit bigger and more commercial, more corporate. So I just didn't think that it would be right for Raspberry Plum.
Coming back to the actual production of your garments, so you design in London, and you do something in Nottingham as well?
Yeah, so the creative design studio is in London, and the warehouse is in Nottingham, and the admin office is in Nottingham. So that's where everything is shipped from. They're in charge of the logistics, the testing, and things like that are not too interesting to me.
And production takes place primarily in Serbia?
Yeah, most of the production is in Serbia. I also work with a non-profit organization in Serbia. I try to work with the local community. This organization makes most of our accessories. They are women who try to sustain handcrafts, Serbian traditional handcrafts. So they will teach them to women's safe houses, to orphanages and so on. So I like to be a part of that organization, even though maybe financially it's not anything for me, but it's working with the local community. This is part of the reason why I started the brand. And then, for example, knitwear is made in Bulgaria, the hats are made in Spain. So as long as majority is in Serbia, I'm happy.
Yes, okay. Okay, and that's very interesting about the cooperation with various organizations you just mentioned. Obviously, Serbia went through horrific times.
Yes.
So it's great to see entrepreneurs who look after this aspect or this side of the.
A lot of Serbia had a lot of textile industry, a big textile industry before the trouble in the 90s, and a lot of skilled workers lost their jobs during the 90s because the factories closed down, which were producing for the international market. So part of my work is trying to bring back customers who will produce in Serbia.
Tell me about retail. When you set up your label, did you have a clear market in mind? Was it the UK or the southeast of, let's say, England? And then did you approach retailers directly yourself, or how did you go about finding shops that would offer your garments?
Yeah, so when I started the label, I didn't try to focus just on the home market. I think now you can reach any market in the world, so it would be a little bit silly to restrict yourself with the home market. A lot of people were telling me when I was selling a lot better in, I still do. I sell a lot better outside of Europe than within Europe. They were telling me, you should focus on selling to the local market. And I'm like, well, why? What's the point?
Yes.
So I did have a kind of an idea of where it could be sold. Obviously, part of the business plan is to know who your customer is and where you're going to sell. So, you know, I came with an idea, but you always get surprised where it ends up selling.
But did you, obviously you have an online presence and you do, you know, sales online, but did you at the beginning approach agents, trade agents in order to get into shops or even to e-commerce players?
I was, you know, it was a learning process, and how the agents work and how distributors work. You can't know everything before you start a business, and a lot of people are scared to start a business because they don't know everything. The best way to learn is just to do it. So I did want agencies, but the right agencies. I didn't want just anybody. And in the beginning I didn't find the right agencies, so I did approach a lot of customers myself and just try to make my presence visible. So I tried to go to as many shows as possible. You have to invest in trade shows. I think that a lot of people produce a beautiful product, but they expect people to come knocking on their door to buy it, and it's not going to happen.
And even a good online presence is not enough.
It's not.
You need to go to the trade fairs.
Having a website is not enough. It's sort of like opening a shop in the middle of the desert and hoping that somebody will stop by.
And was Playtime Paris your first trade fair you went to? Or?
No, my first trade fair was actually Pitti Bimbo.
Okay.
And this was at the time, this was autumn winter 14.
Yes.
So this was at the time where Pitti Bimbo still wasn't catering so much for small independents. There was, I think, a couple of rows of small independent shops, and the rest were big corporate companies. So I didn't think it was right at the time for small companies. And when I found out that it's changed and it's catering a lot more to small companies, I came back, and it's one of the best trade shows, I have to say.
And do you need to set up meetings before the trade show, or do you rely entirely on people dropping by? On trade practitioners or agents?
As the brand is growing, it's easier to set up meetings. When you're an unknown, it's very difficult to set up meetings. So I always sent out emails just letting people know where I'm going to be and where, you know, just an invite, just to make your brand known. Not a lot of people would come by in the beginning. But slowly,
kind of terrible sinking feeling sitting there.
Exactly. But you know, because I've been in the fashion industry for a while before that, I knew not to expect too much from the first few seasons. You just have to keep going.
Yes. And you know, it's obviously, that is, I guess, you know, possibly the biggest investment for a startup. You know, being at these, you know, big trade fairs, which obviously is not cheap. Coming back to your sales operation or your sales structure, so you're exporting a lot. Which are your main export markets?
So the Middle East, I would say, is a very good market for us. The Far East, China, South Korea are very good. And America has a lot of beautiful shops, but they're smaller shops. So we have a lot of stockists, but maybe financially we don't do as well as we do in the Middle East and the Far East. And then we have a few stockists in Russia as well. Italy is growing really well. Now we have a showroom in Italy, so that's going to help us.
Yes, in Milano.
Yes, Lemon Drops,
Okay.
And and I think Europe takes a little bit longer to develop, I think.
Why is that? Because it's you have a very distinctive style, and you know, obviously.
I think it's for everybody. It's the same. It's not to do so much with the style. I think that I think it's firstly it's one of the slowest growing markets.
Yes.
Compared to the other markets, and people are just more practical. They don't tend to spend so much on their children's clothes. Okay.
How did you get into Asia? You know, many people say, let's go to Asia, a huge market, you know, high demand.
Just being at trade shows.
Which trade shows did you attend? Which trade shows? Did you go to Shanghai or?
No, just the 3 trade shows that I mentioned.
Yes,
Yeah.
I see. And so you got approached by Chinese buyers and...
Just being there, yeah.
I see. Good. So talking about Asia or Asian markets, they're really, you have agents and they make sure that you are stocked or your products are stocked in the relevant shops. Okay, well that's, again, for young labels or, small companies that might think about it, this is interesting to know.
And also another good way is Instagram. I ask a lot of my customers where they found me, and a lot of them say Instagram.
Yes, okay.
So that's a great digital platform where everybody can access, even people who can't come to the trade show.
Yeah.
And slowly, as you become better known as a brand, you get recommended. So customers will ask their shops whether they stock that and that brand, and can they bring them in. And so it just takes a while, but you have to be patient and very persistent, and have a lot of investments.
Yes.
Yes.
Good that you mentioned Instagram. I guess you invested lots of time and energy and effort into, the social media and, the online. Which social media channel is the most important for you? You mentioned Instagram. So more than Facebook? What role
Facebook initially was important. At the moment, I don't think it's as important.
How come? What do you think is the reason?
I don't know. It's more for socializing, I believe, not so much. You have to pay for everything, even to be visible now. It's not organic. And I think eventually Instagram is going to become like that. So you just have to keep up with the social media. It's ever changing.
Yes. Do you have a dedicated team looking after?
No, it's me.
Is you?
It's
so
me.
every 3 minutes you are kind of hacking away at your
and
poor
also
mobile.
People like to speak to the creative, the brains of the operation.
Yes.
So I do write on my Instagram that it is me who's posting.
Yes. So how do you manage time-wise?
I don't know. I really don't know.
So you're one of those people at the airport, who don't look up, but look at their small screen all the time.
My husband is not happy about it, but I try to make time for us as well.
Very good. Time is running out. If looking back, 4 or 5 years, there are companies out there, there are people out there who take an interest in fashion, who sometimes would like to set up a business. On the other hand, they know retail is not easy, or fashion retail especially. What would your advice be?
I used to teach actually at a university in Mexico for a year. And my advice, in general for the fashion industry, my advice to my students was you have to be very passionate about what you do if you want to be in this industry, and you have to be very determined. If you think that it's going to be easy, you should just give up now. It's one of the toughest industries in the world, I would say, because it's so fast. It's like starting a new business every 6 months. So unless you are really sure you want to do it, unless you absolutely love it, don't do it.
Okay, that's very clear words. Very clear words. It's a good note to end on. Realistic, at the same time, it's meant supportively. Lovely. Thanks very much indeed for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay.